Please, don't arrest my mom. The little girl's desperate cry echoed through the silent courtroom just as the bailiff stepped toward the defendant. Tears streamed down her face as she ran past stunned spectators and wrapped her tiny arms around her mother's waist. "You can't take her," she sobbed. "She's all I have." The judge was about to ask the bailiff to escort the child outside when something slipped from the girl's backpack and landed on the courtroom floor. It was an old, worn photograph. The judge picked it up absent-mindedly, but the moment he looked at it, his expression changed completely. His hand froze. The woman standing beside the frightened little girl stared at him in confusion. "Your Honor, is something wrong?" The judge couldn't answer. His eyes remained locked on the faded photograph, where he recognized a face he hadn't seen in nearly 20 years. He whispered just 4 words. "Where did you get this?" The entire courtroom fell into stunned silence, unaware that the answer would uncover a forgotten act of kindness and change the fate of everyone in the room. Before we reveal the truth behind that photograph, please like this video, subscribe to Kindness Corner Stories, and share it with someone who believes compassion can change lives. Also, tell us in the comments, which city and country are you watching from? The little girl quickly wiped her tears and picked up the photograph with trembling hands. "It's mine," she whispered. Judge Daniel Harper looked at her gently. "May I see it for just a moment?" She nodded. The courtroom remained silent as he studied the faded picture more closely. It showed a younger woman standing beside an exhausted teenage boy outside what appeared to be a homeless shelter. The edges were worn, and the colors had nearly disappeared with time. But the judge knew that face. He looked toward the defendant. "Ma'am, what's your name?" "Emily Carter." "And the woman in this photograph?" Emily's eyes filled with emotion. "My mother." The judge slowly lowered the picture. "What was her name?" "Grace Carter." A wave of emotion crossed Judge Harper's face. Though he quickly regained his composure, the prosecutor cleared his throat. "Your Honor, with respect, today's hearing concerns felony check fraud. We can discuss personal matters later." The judge nodded. "Proceed." Emily stood quietly beside her attorney, her shoulders tense. The prosecutor addressed the court. "Over the past 6 months, Ms. Carter altered 3 payroll checks totaling just under $4,000. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Emily closed her eyes. "I don't deny what happened," she said softly. "The signatures were mine." The prosecutor continued. "Given the evidence and her confession, the state requests a custodial sentence." At those words, the little girl reached for her mother's hand. Emily squeezed it tightly. "I'm sorry." "Lily," she whispered. "You promised you'd come home," Lily replied, her voice breaking. "I know." Judge Harper watched the exchange in silence. Something about Emily's expression didn't match the image of a hardened criminal. She wasn't making excuses or blaming anyone. She looked like someone carrying more guilt than fear. He glanced down at the photograph once again. There was something written on the back. Carefully turning it over, he read the faded handwriting. "To the young man who believed his life was over, never forget that one act of kindness can rewrite an entire future. Grace." Judge Harper's heartbeat quickened. He quietly folded the photograph and looked directly at Emily. "Did your mother ever tell you why she kept this picture?" Emily nodded. "She said the boy in that photograph lost everything when he was 17. Everyone else walked past him." She paused, fighting back tears. "But she gave him a meal, helped him find a safe place to stay, and convinced him to apply for a scholarship. Instead of giving up." The courtroom remained completely still. Then Emily said the one sentence that made the judge grip the edge of his bench. "My mother always wondered what became of him, because she never learned his name." Judge Harper removed his glasses and took a slow breath. For several long seconds, no one in the courtroom spoke. Finally, he looked directly at Emily. "Your mother never knew my name," he said quietly. "But I never forgot hers." Confused murmurs spread through the gallery. The prosecutor frowned. "Your Honor, are you saying you were the young man in that photograph?" Daniel nodded. I was 17. My father had just passed away. My mother was in the hospital and I had nowhere to go. I was sleeping in my car behind a community center. His voice was calm, but the emotion behind it was unmistakable. One evening, your mother found me. She didn't ask why I was there. She simply brought me a hot meal, gave me a blanket, and told me that one terrible chapter didn't have to become my whole story. Emily stared at him in disbelief. She never told us that. That's because she wasn't looking for recognition. The courtroom fell silent once again. Judge Harper continued. She helped me fill out scholarship applications, drove me to my first college interview, and refused to let me quit on myself. He smiled faintly. Years later, I graduated from law school. Every achievement I earned was built on the hope your mother gave me when I had none. Several people in the courtroom quietly wiped away tears. The prosecutor stood respectfully. Your Honor, if I may, while that is deeply moving, the facts of this case remain before the court. Daniel nodded. They do. He turned back to Emily. Tell me something honestly. She lifted her eyes. Why did you alter those checks? Emily looked at Lily before answering. My daughter has a rare heart condition. The courtroom became still. Our insurance stopped covering one of her treatments. I worked 2 jobs, sold my car, and emptied every savings account we had. Her voice cracked. When I realized I couldn't afford her next surgery, I panicked. She lowered her head. I knew what I did was wrong. She paused. But every time I looked at my daughter, I couldn't choose between obeying the law and watching her get sicker. The courtroom was overcome with emotion. Then Emily reached into her purse and placed a folded envelope on the witness stand. I brought this today. The judge opened it carefully. Inside were receipts showing she had already repaid every dollar she had taken, working nights, weekends, and borrowing from relatives after Lily's condition stabilized. Daniel looked up, deeply moved. The law had given him the facts, but now, for the first time, he was beginning to understand the full truth behind them. Judge Harper quietly reviewed every receipt before placing the envelope beside the case file. He looked across the courtroom. The law exists for a reason, he said, and this court cannot ignore what happened. Emily lowered her head. I understand, Your Honor. But justice, the judge continued, isn't served by looking only at a person's worst decision. The courtroom remained silent. Daniel turned to the prosecutor. Has Ms. Carter been convicted of any crime before this case? No, Your Honor. Has every stolen dollar been repaid? Yes. Did the investigation uncover any evidence that she used the money for personal luxury or financial gain? The prosecutor shook his head. No, every transaction was connected to her daughter's medical expenses. Judge Harper nodded thoughtfully. Then he looked at Lily. The little girl sat quietly beside her mother, clutching the same faded photograph that had changed everything. Daniel smiled gently. Your grandmother once told me that one act of kindness could rewrite a person's future. He paused. Today, this court has the opportunity to prove she was right. The spectators leaned forward. After several moments, Daniel announced his decision. Emily Carter, because of your guilty plea, your complete restitution, your previously clean record, and the extraordinary circumstances presented to this court, I sentence you to supervised probation, community service, and financial ethics counseling. Emily covered her mouth, unable to believe what she had heard. You will not serve time in prison. Lily burst into tears and threw her arms around her mother. The courtroom erupted with quiet sighs of relief. But Judge Harper wasn't finished. He turned toward the gallery. I want the record to reflect that mercy is not the absence of accountability. His voice grew stronger. It is the recognition that justice should protect society while leaving room for redemption. The prosecutor slowly stood. Your Honor, Daniel looked at him. On behalf of the state, the prosecutor said, we support the court's recommendation. Then something unexpected happened. Several local business owners who had attended the hearing as observers approached Emily. After the ruling, one offered her a bookkeeping position under close supervision. another pledge to help with Lily's future medical expenses through a local charity. As the courtroom slowly emptied, Daniel walked over to Emily and handed her the faded photograph. "Your mother saved my future without ever asking for anything in return." He smiled warmly. Today, a small part of that kindness found its way back to her family. Emily looked at the photograph, then at her daughter. For the first time in months, the fear in her eyes was replaced by hope, and everyone who witnessed that day left with the same unforgettable lesson. A single act of compassion may take years to return, but when it does, it has the power to change generations. A few months later, Emily had rebuilt her life one honest step at a time. She was thriving in her new job. Lily's health continued to improve, and the little family finally found the stability they had prayed for. The faded photograph was framed in their living room, not as a reminder of hardship, but as proof that kindness never truly disappears. Judge Harper often reflected on the day that old photograph returned to his courtroom. It reminded him that while laws are written on paper, justice is guided by humanity. Grace Carter's simple act of compassion had come full circle, touching a life she never imagined and ultimately saving her own family years later. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who believes second chances matter, and subscribe to Kindness Corner Stories for more unforgettable emotional journeys. We'd also love to hear from you, so tell us in the comments which city and country you're watching from, because the smallest act of kindness today may become the greatest miracle in someone else's tomorrow.